All right, so today we're tackling a belief system that makes a really bold claim. I mean, a huge one. It says it holds the master key to, well, pretty much all of the world's religions and philosophies. So, yeah, let's dive right into the super complex and mysterious world of Theosophy.
And this was the grand promise, right? This is what its founders put out there. They basically said, hey, we're about to unveil a secret, ancient wisdom that's been hidden from everyone for thousands of years. I mean, talk about a final revelation.
So this really gets down to the central question that Theosophy asks us to think about. What if? What if behind all the different myths, all the scriptures, all the symbols we see across the globe, there was just one single, original, pure truth? A single thread connecting everything. I'm talking from the Vedas to Plato, all the way to Christianity. Now that is the mystery we're going to get into.
Okay, so how on earth does Theosophy even begin to build a case for something like that? Well, it starts by asking us to do something pretty radical. It wants us to completely throw out our modern idea of history. Just toss it. It's proposing a totally different way of looking at progress and knowledge itself.
And what's so interesting here is the huge contrast with how we normally think. We're taught that history is a straight line, right? A steady march forward where new ideas replace the old ones. Simple. But Theosophy says, nope, not at all. It argues history moves in cycles, kind of like a spiral staircase or a helix. The ancient ideas don't just vanish, they come back around, reappearing in new forms with each upward turn of that spiral.
And this is a really crucial point. Theosophy claims that all the world's great religions are really just, well, broken pieces of that original pure truth. They didn't start out simple and get more complex over time. No, the idea is they started as these perfect, pure revelations. But then, over the centuries, human misinterpretation and rigid institutions creep in, and they corrupt them, turning this living, breathing spirituality into just empty, lifeless dogma.
Okay, so if there's this incredible secret doctrine, right, there's got to be a messenger. Someone has to deliver it to the world. And the messenger for our modern age? Well, she was easily one of the most controversial and, frankly, mysterious figures of the entire 19th century.
Let's talk about Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. What a character. She was born into Russian aristocracy, but she didn't stick around the palace. Instead, she spent decades traveling all over the world. We're talking Tibet, Egypt, the Americas, claiming she was being initiated into these ancient secret mystery schools. Then, in 1875, she shows up in New York City and, along with Colonel Henry Steele Olcott, she founds the Theosophical Society. Their whole mission? To bring this hidden wisdom to the modern world.
And a big part of why she was so captivating is that, well, weird stuff just seemed to happen around her, all the time. We have reports from witnesses, even total skeptics, of objects just materializing out of thin air, tables suddenly becoming so heavy that no one could lift them, just on her command. And her ability to just know things was uncanny. There's this one famous story where she revealed the name of her father's favorite horse, which had been dead for years. Zayichik. Her dad was completely certain that nobody else on Earth could have known that name.
But here's the thing. Blavatsky always insisted, hey, this isn't me. She said she wasn't the source of all this wisdom or these strange powers. She claimed she was just an agent, a messenger, for beings of a much higher order.
And who were these beings? She called them the Mahatmas, or the Masters of Wisdom. And to be clear, these weren't supposed to be gods or some kind of ghosts. No, the idea is that they are highly evolved human beings who've perfected themselves over countless lifetimes. They're the real guardians of the secret doctrine, living way off the grid, usually somewhere in Tibet, and kind of guiding humanity's evolution from behind the scene.
So how did they communicate? Definitely not by mail. Theosophists say they use this process called precipitation. Get this, a master would compose a letter, word for word, in his mind. Then he'd mentally beam that thought form to a student who could be hundreds of miles away. That student would then use some kind of occult power to literally pull ink and paper particles out of the air and reform them into a letter that matched the master's thought and handwriting. And then, poof, the letter would just appear, sometimes dropping from the ceiling. I know, it sounds completely like science fiction, but Theosophists claim there are hundreds of these letters, and they're still around today.
You gotta ask though, why all the secrecy? Why not just show up and prove everything? Well, in one of those very same letters, one of the masters, Kuthumi, basically explained that just handing over absolute proof to an unprepared world would be a total disaster.
He said it would shatter modern science, and at the same time it would send everyone running back to blind superstition and miracle worship. The argument was that humanity had to figure this out for itself. All right, so what was this secret wisdom that the masters were revealing? What was the big secret? Well, it was nothing less than a complete blueprint for the entire cosmos and for our place in it.
Okay, so a central pillar of this whole blueprint is reincarnation. But this isn't just about, coming back as a different person or an animal. Theosophy sees it as this huge cosmic educational journey. The immortal part of us, they call it the ego, comes back to Earth over and over again. And it's not random. It's all part of a grand evolutionary plan to gather every kind of experience imaginable.
And what's the engine that drives this whole journey? It's karma. Now, this is the universal law of cause and effect. Super important, it's not about some god rewarding or punishing you. Think of it more like an impersonal law of balance, like gravity. Every single thought, every action creates a cause that has to be perfectly balanced by an effect, maybe in this life, maybe in a future one. It means the universe is fundamentally just and that ultimately we are the ones creating our own destiny.
And the scale of this thing is just immense. I mean, it's hard to even wrap your head around it. Theosophy maps out this cosmic evolution that spans millions and millions of years. It talks about humanity's journey through these huge periods of time called root races. And this whole journey isn't even just on Earth. They say it takes place across a whole chain of interconnected worlds.
So the natural question is, where are we right now in this epic cosmic story? Well, according to Theosophy, we're currently in the fifth major stage, the fifth root race. And the key idea here is that we've just passed the lowest point, the most dense and physical part of our evolution. Now we're on the long journey back up that spiral, evolving out of pure matter and back towards spirit.
And what about the time between lives? Is there a heaven? Theosophy describes a state they call devachan, which basically means the heaven world. But it's not a permanent place you go to forever. It's more of a subjective paradise that your own consciousness creates. It's where your soul gets to rest and basically process and absorb all the good, positive, and noble experiences from your last life. It's like charging up your spiritual batteries before you head out for the next stage of the journey. Okay, so after all of that, that's some seriously complex cosmology. Where does this leave us? What's the point of knowing any of it? Well, the answer, according to Theosophy, isn't about just believing it. It's all about what you do. And this is really the bottom line. Theosophy isn't meant to be a faith that you just passively accept. No, it's presented as a path of active, conscious work. The whole goal is to take control and actually speed up your own spiritual evolution, and by doing that, you're helping to lift up all of humanity along with you.
And this really brings us to the ethical heart of the whole system. Madame Blavatsky summed up this practical path in a beautiful passage she called the Golden Stairs. And it's not about complicated rituals or weird ceremonies. It's all about cultivating these really universal virtues: a clean life, an open mind, a pure heart, and a sense of true brotherhood for everyone. It's about having the courage to endure injustice and the valor to defend others.
And that really brings us to our final thought here. When you boil it all down, Theosophy is a search for unity. It's this deep dive to find the one single truth that might connect all of our countless divisions. So the question it leaves us with is, well, it's a pretty powerful one, especially today. In a world that so often feels fractured, divided, and just plain chaotic, what is the value of looking for a hidden unity? What could we possibly gain, or maybe even lose, in that kind of search?